Hello everyone, Jonathan here from Triple M Games, and in this episode we are going to be setting up the player lasers. So open up the Godot editor, and a quick recap on the last episode. We set up the main menu to where we could hit enter and it would load into level 1. The player could follow the mouse cursor or the keyboard, and if we press escape, we go back to the game over screen. Press enter again and you're back to level 1. So first off, let's open up Scene, Open Scene, Levels, and Level 1. Now the first thing I'm going to do is right click on Level, Add Child, Node 2D. And we'll double click on that and change it to Lasers. What's going to happen whenever we add our lasers to the scene, I don't want them to spawn into the main scene and clutter up the whole level, and I don't want it to spawn into the player node because then it would follow the player when we moved. So I'm just going to use a lasers node 2D to hold all of our lasers. Now we're going to click on level, add child node, sprite, double click on this and name it to laser. Right click, add child node, area 2D. And right click on area 2D, add child node, collision shape 2D. Go into the inspector, shape, drop down arrow, new rectangle shape 2D. Click on the rectangle shape, set this to 4 by 8. Zoom in over here. So I already have the image loaded into my scene, but what you do is in the file system, go under Assets, Sprites, Lasers, laser1.png. Now we'll click on our laser, and you can drag and drop that into the texture, or you can select this drop down arrow, click on Load, Assets, Sprites, Lasers, laser1.png. Now we can resize the collision shape. Now we'll select the area 2D, and we're going to set up the collision layer. And I thought it would be alright to have the borders as layer 1, select the player as layer 2, select the lasers as layer 3, and select the enemies as layer 4. So we're going to set the laser to layer 3, and we're going to allow it to check if it's colliding with the enemy layer. We're also going to go to Node, Groups, change this to Player Laser, and we're going to right click on the laser, save branch as scene, go to Assets, Instances, create a new folder, call this one Lasers, and right click, new folder, player_lasers. I'm going to call this one Laser 01. Now we can move this around. And the next thing we're going to do is select our laser, add a new script, no comments, select the scripts folder, select create a new folder, lasers, player lasers, and laser 01. Create. So first off, we'll create a func physics process, and then global position .y minus equals 50 times delta. This will mean that the laser will always move up the screen. So we can test that. As you can see, the laser moves up the screen. And we don't want that to be indefinite. We want it to remove itself whenever it leaves the screen. So what we can do is if global position dot y is less than, because in Godot, the top left is the 0, 0 coordinates, and then of course it gets bigger the further down you go or the further right you go. So if the global position of our bullet or laser is less than, we can test that with 80, and then we'll just queue free. And if we test that, we'll see that the laser goes up, and it removes itself whenever it reaches 80. So we're going to set this to -8. So now, the laser will reach the edge of the screen, and it should remove itself. But you won't notice it, so that's exactly what we want. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, let's give it a variable, so it's going to be a constant speed. Equals, we'll go with 80. And we'll set that to speed. Play it again, and it moves at 80. The next thing we're going to do is check if it collides with the enemy. We do not have an enemy right now, but we will... We'll create a test dummy. So select level, right click, add child, sprite, right click, add child, area 2D, and right click, add collision shape 2D. And this should appear at the top left. We'll go to the inspector, shape, new rectangle shape 2D, click on rectangle shape, and you can set this to 8 by 8. We're going to set the sprite to the Godot logo. It will appear a little big for this, so go to transform and change that to 0.3. Now we can change the area. And we'll just change this to enemy. Then we'll move the enemy over to where the bullet will collide. If we play the game, the laser will just pass right through the enemy. So we want to check if the enemy has collided with our laser. First off, we need to tell the area 2D of the enemy that it is the enemy group. So select node, groups, enemy. Go back to the inspector, collision, and remember the enemy layer is layer 4. And we can remove the mask, because it won't, well... it will collide with the borders, which is another thing we're going to set here. Border left. Going to go over to inspector, collision, and they're all layer 1. That should be good. It doesn't really matter if you uncheck the mask, it just means that they can't detect if they collide with something on this layer 1. But since that's all controlled by the player or the enemy, then that's fine. Now the other thing is our player. We're going to set the area 2D, collision layer, to number 2. But we also want to collide with the first layer. Now if we play this, you'll notice that everything works the exact same. Now let's do some print checks and see if our laser collides with the enemy. So we're going to get node, and select our laser scene for this. It doesn't have the script, so you can always just change that. Get node, area 2D, connect, area entered, self, and colliding. And for this object, we won't need to check if the area exited. So now, func, colliding, area, if area dot is in group enemy enemy will print hit. Yeah, maybe not so exaggerated. Go back to level 1, play the scene, and as the laser hits, it prints out the hint. I'll just stop that. Also, there's another thing that we should probably do is select editor settings, scroll down to output, and always close output on stop. That just closes the output whenever the game window stops playing. And the other thing we can do is we will cue free our laser. So if we play the level 1, whenever the laser collides with the enemy, the laser removes itself. Now the other thing we can do is get the area dot get parent dot cue free. Now, why are we getting the area and then getting its parent? Well, it's because the area is inside of the sprite, because it's colliding with the area 2D, and then we want to get its parent, so we can remove the whole laser from the scene, or the whole enemy. So now that we've done that, if we play it, it will remove both the laser and the enemy. Now obviously we want our enemy to have health. We'll go further into depth in the next video, but for now, what we're going to do is check if the enemy has health. So we'll do if area.getParent.has or .get a variable of health, then we'll do that. So if I play the scene now, it will just pass through because the enemy doesn't have a variable of health. And from there, we are going to move this over to the... we can move that over to the top. Okay, and then now, if area dot get parent dot health is greater than 1, area dot get parent dot health minus equals 1. Else, if area dot get parent dot health equals 0, then we can area dot get parent dot cue free, as well as we'll just set the health equals 0. Now it will collide and remove. So we won't be able to test the enemy until the next video, because I have plans for that. We'll just show you how the laser works in this video. The other thing I want to do is maybe we have some sort of special power-ups. Like the laser can pierce through the enemy and keep going until it reaches the edge of the screen. So what I like to do is go into globals, and then what we'll do is set a var laser mod equals normal. So we'll go down here to laser, and if globals dot laser and now if you play that, it will remove itself. Or if we go to globals and change this to pierce, and then play the game again, the laser will pass right through the enemy, but it will also deal damage to everything it hits. Okay, so now our laser is all set up. Let's add it to the player so we can shoot the lasers. We'll select our player. We'll also remove the laser and go to the player script. Now the first thing we're going to define is our laser. So if we go over to onReady var laser 01 equals preload, and then this will be selecting our laser instance. We'll go full screen. So it will be under Assets, Instances, Lasers, Player Lasers, laser01.scene. So we'll go down into our physics process, and we're going to check if the keyboard is pressed. So at the end, if input.isAction just pressed, or in this case, we'll set it up to pressed. Shoot button. We can print shooting. So if I play the scene now, and then I hold the spacebar, it prints out shooting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of our laser. So var new laser equals laser01 dot instance. And now we need to add this to our lasers node. So in order to do that, we'll get node, then we'll go up one and select our lasers. Then add child new laser. So now if we play this, in the top left you'll see that there is this small dot. That's our laser spawning into the scene. So what we need to do now is new laser dot global position equals vector2 global position dot x global position dot y. So what this is doing is setting the new laser's position to our player position. If we run this, now you'll see that we're spawning a lot of lasers. Also, let's go into the global script and change this back to normal. Now back into the player. Play the scene. And you'll see that it's removing whenever it hits the enemy. So why did I do it like this? We could just do the global position, but I like giving the ability to press negative, and then as an exaggeration 32. And if we play the game now, you'll notice that the bullets or the lasers spawn above the player. That gives us just a little bit more control. I like to set that to 4 for this. It just looks a little bit nicer. So now, let's control the lasers to where they're not spawning like crazy. So in order to do that, we're going to go to the top of the player script, and we're going to set a const shoot delay equals 5. Or 4. We'll go with 4. And then another thing we're going to do is go down to onReady var. This is going to be shoot cooldown equals shoot delay. And now we'll scroll down to our shooting and we'll go if shoot cooldown is greater than 0, shoot cooldown minus equals 0.1. And then else, we will move this over with the tab key. And then now we'll reset the shoot delay. So shoot cooldown equals shoot delay. If we try running this again, you'll notice that the lasers have a delay. And if we just tap the button like crazy, it will still spawn at the proper times. And I believe that's it for this video. So keep an eye out for the next video. We'll be handling how to set up the enemies and how they move on the screen. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.